The Supreme Court hearing oral arguments from the Trump administration to finally end temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Haitians and Syrians, a program first put in place during the 2010 Haiti earthquake and the Syrian civil war. The program protects 350,000 Haitian migrants along with more than 6,000 Syrians currently living in the U.S. Lower courts blocked the move, but the Trump administration argues conditions have changed since TPS was first implemented and that protections are no longer justified. Well, for more, let's bring in Texas Congressman Brandon Gill. Thank you for being here today, sir. Good to see you. This is a big issue, I think, not just because of the numbers involved, but because it gets back to the question of when we say something's temporary, do we mean that? Or is that just a cover for somebody with an agenda to get people in and keep them here forever?
Well, that's precisely what the Democrats would like it to mean. I mean, this was a program, as you pointed out, that was originally intended for a small number of Haitians to come into the United States in the wake of a devastating earthquake. It was meant to be temporary. What's happened is that it has since been redesignated and re-upped to the point now, in the case of Haiti, of 350,000 Haitians who are covered under TPS. 69% of them came into the United States under the Biden administration. In other words, they were just part of the flood of illegal aliens pouring across our border. 91% of those 350,000 came into the United States illegally. So this has become a de facto amnesty program, and the president, I believe, has rightfully said, enough of this. The American people are sick of it, and I'm the elected president, and I'm going to stop it, and I think he's right to do that.
I do want to give Americans credit for being heartfelt people. They have big hearts. We are a generous nation. We care about those who are downtrodden. But I do think that people with big hearts can also feel taken advantage of when people who come in and avail themselves of our resources stick around and abuse that system, stay on welfare for years after years after years. That seems to be the dynamic here.
You're right. You're exactly right. And, we are a nation of big hearts, but we're also a nation of people with brains. And we've had many, many years of open borders, and this is part of it, that has ravaged our civilization, that has brought crime and drugs and all kinds of social dysfunction into American communities, who has made bringing our social programs down, making our schooling much poorer for our own children. Our goal as elected representatives of the U.S. should be to look out for our people, American citizens, not for illegal aliens or foreigners who should have never come into our country in the first place. The reality is that 65% of Haitian, non-citizen-headed households in the United States right now are on welfare. That does not make the United States stronger in any sense whatsoever, no matter what the Democrats like to believe or like to tell you. So we ought to look at this rationally and say that we should be looking out for our people first. And I think that whenever you do, the obvious answer is that we need to end these programs. They were never designed to be amnesty, and that's what they've become. And we need to abide by the law in the United States and tell these people to go home.
Do you ever get worried that Americans are running out of steam when it comes to the issues of immigration and the border? It's been a year just full of headlines, full of tumult. And I wonder if, as someone who supports strong borders and clear immigration law, I wonder if you worry that Americans are getting tired and they're saying, you know what, I don't want to fight this fight anymore.
No, I don't think that they are. I think they recognize that this was the key issue of the last election cycle. The American people are the ones who are seeing their communities totally transformed by mass migration, who are seeing their children's schooling quality go down because half their students that are in their schools are speaking foreign languages. That's a problem. People recognize that. It's the American people who are getting slaughtered on our streets because illegal aliens are driving 18-wheelers and driving in the wrong lanes, for instance. It is our people who are harmed by this, and I think they sent us here to do something about it. And, I also think that the Democrats, or the American people, recognize that the Democrats want open borders as a way to politically rig elections in their favor, to import voters, to make sure that our voter rolls aren't clean, to make sure that we don't have photo ID laws, and to congregate them in blue cities and blue states that are sanctuary jurisdictions, to give blue states more congressional representation at the expense of red states. The American people know it, and they're tired of it.
Congressman Brandon Gill, good to see you tonight. And as a point of personal privilege, may I say thank you for all you do to defend the rights of the unborn. I appreciate that. Have a great night, sir.
Thanks for having me.